Wireframes are low fidelity sketches of what you imagine your website is going to look like. By low fidelity, I mean they outline just the basic structural and textual elements of your website. They're intended to be easy to make, and they allow you to test out your ideas with your design collaborators or potential visitors to your site before you put too much work into any given design. Wireframes tend to have some basic features. First, they tend to be in black and white. Color is not important at this point in the design process, so you should resist your desire to use color in your own sketches. They're often made with just pen and paper, although sometimes people will use software, and I'll show you this in a second, if they want to share them electronically with somebody else. They tend to have a lot of boxes. These boxes help you indicate potential placement of titles, navigation bars, text blocks, sidebars, pictures, and other things like that. They tend to have some text, but not too much. You usually put text in a wireframe if you're interested in testing the wording or placement of a label or hyperlink. So here's one example of wireframes that I have actually used for an actual project. This is a project that's happening at Wesleyan where I wanted to give a particular advisory board some ideas of different portfolio options in WordPress. Here are the actual wireframes that I made. You'll see here that first I'm trying to communicate one imagined homepage. Here's a different version of that where you see I have switched the navigation bar so it's on the right-hand side. Here's another example where I proposed that a student using a portfolio could have sort of a sliding set of images at the top of the homepage. Here I'm playing with whether the navigation menu should be centered, like here, or to the left, and so forth. So you'll see there's all these different examples that I'm trying to communicate about different options that I want someone who doesn't work with WordPress to now be able to imagine. Here's one more example. This set of wireframes I used when I was working with the Wesleyan Library and we were trying to re-envision their website. This was back in 2017. You'll see here that I offered 12 different variants for the homepage. And I'm just going to scroll through them and point out a few things. A lot of it is around placement and how many boxes and buttons to have, whether they're centered or to the left or to the right, and so forth. Here's another wireframe from the same project, but much further along in the process. You'll see at this point, there's a lot more text as we were trying to imagine what would be where. And one of the things we did with a wireframe like this is we would print it and literally go and find students and ask them to respond to, in particular, some of these buttons to see if they knew what they meant and what would happen if they were to click on one of these buttons. It's also important to note that when you're making wireframes, you typically would make one for how a website would appear on a desktop computer, but also how it might appear on mobile. Here are some things for you to think about. First of all, wireframes are about testing options. When you go to make your own wireframes, make many of them. Make many variants so that you have different options to pick from. Second of all, your inclination will be to make a wireframe for the homepage. And of course you should do that, but you also might want to make some wireframes for some internal pages for your imagined site. Finally, wireframing is really important in this class because it will help you communicate to me and to your colleagues in the same class about how you envision your site. This will help us help you find a WordPress theme that can accommodate your imagined vision.